And there is a place for forced learning. There does come a time in which those who care about a child look at that child and say, now is the time that you should learn about such and such. And they would do it on the basis of the child's interests, the child's state of development, and the need in society to know certain things. But obviously a caring individual would not force a child to learn something unless he realized this is a good time for the child to learn it, this is important things for the child to learn. And this therefore is appropriate to say, whether you like it or not, we're going to make you learn this. Well, you say, if you leave it until the child is ready, they may never be ready for all kinds of things. There's so much that a child should learn. And that's the very notion that gets us into trouble in school. When we, as sophisticated, mature adults, think of all the things that one should know. And then we conclude the way to ensure that children know all those things is to force them, stage by stage, to learn all these things, hour after hour, day after day. That would be a wonderful way to treat children if it worked, but it doesn't. We send children to study compulsory math, compulsory spelling, compulsory history, compulsory geography, subject after subject. They sit there for hour after hour, and a huge number of them, if perhaps the majority of them, don't learn it. And so, the advocates of a huge amount of forced learning rely on this argument that all these things are so important for children to learn. But their argument fails because ultimately those children don't learn it. So who succeeds in school? Who succeeds in school tends to be docile, obedient children. Children who have had a good experience with authority. So when the authority figure, the teacher, comes in every day and says, you have to learn this, you have to learn that, you have to make this chart, that graph, and this project, they willingly go along with it. But it also means that free-spirited children, children with a less favorable attitude towards authority, those who are less compliant, inevitably do poorly. The teacher sets before his or her class the project. Some students willingly get to work on it. Other students throw up their hands and say, I'm not interested in this. I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do this. And what is the response of the teacher? To look at those latter students and say, troublemaker, problem, F student ultimately if they don't change their attitude. So we have a school system which takes compliant, obedient children and makes them the success story, and takes strong-willed, self-reliant children who have less faith in authority and in essence labels them troublemakers and losers. So what is the effect of a system which labels compliant, obedient children to be the winners and the ideal students, and takes self-willed, self-reliant students and labels them troublemakers or losers? Well, it turns out what happens is we take some of the best people in our society and label them at the beginning of their life's journey as losers. I remember teaching in a school in which the principal decided that in order to encourage his students, who were largely underachieving students, frankly, they had come to the school in many cases because they had had some problems, so he wanted to inspire them to work harder and do well. He found 5 or 6 businessmen from the local community who shared a bond with these students to come in and inspire them to work hard with the story of their success. Every one of these businessmen came in, talked about his own life, encouraged the students, And then each and every one of them concluded their talk with this. They told the students to work hard in school, to take their schooling seriously. And each one of them said, don't be like me. When I was in school, I didn't treat it seriously. And I didn't do well in school. Think about that. Those who were most successful, those who had the dynamism, the insight, the intelligence, and the drive to go off and start their own businesses, each and every one of them had an experience of not doing well in school, of being labeled, well, below average, being labeled perhaps a troublemaker. We have a very real problem if this institution of initiation in our society, schooling, is taking the brightest, the most capable, the most dynamic young people and labeling them as losers. And school emphasizes, much more than learning, success at getting the piece of paper. It is the report card that's most important. It is your certificate that's most important. You've got to get these things, children are told, or you won't be successful in life. Students or young people are presented with this notion of their future, which comes down to this. Either you succeed in school, get those magic pieces of paper, or you will suffer in life. You will live in poverty, you will live in an unhappy life, doing a job you don't want to do. The message they don't receive is, you want to be educated because you want understanding. And when you understand how the world is, how the physical world is, how the social world is, the world of people, you will have power, you will have strength, and you will have the sheer joy that comes from understanding. That is not the message they hear. They don't hear it in school, they don't hear it from home. What they hear instead is, you've got to get the magic pieces of paper, those degrees. No one will hire you, parents tell their kids, unless you have that degree. And so, school becomes a mad paper chase. The worst offenders in this regard are the teachers themselves. Spend any time with professional teachers, and you will quickly hear about how they're taking this supplementary course or that course. And you may think, these people are interested in learning. But you will quickly hear them followed up by saying, oh, this qualifies me for this or for that. Most often it qualifies them to move up to a higher pay category. So the teachers themselves believe that education, schooling, is not about increasing your learning. Schooling is about increasing your paycheck.
Yes.
And that is an attitude that the teachers have, and that is an attitude which, of course, their students pick up.